Welcome to Life on Purpose, where we talk all things health, wellness, and living your life on your terms. I'm your host, Brandy Eilert. I'm a holistic health and wellness coach and creator of Brandy Eilert Wellness, where I help women with adrenal fatigue and chronic stress live a more holistic, purpose-filled life. You can find my content and services at wellness360coach.com/Brandy-Eilert. You can also find me at Brandy Eilert Holistic Wellness Coach on Facebook or Brandy Eilert Wellness Coach on Instagram. Now get ready to learn how to really live life on purpose. Welcome back to the Life on Purpose podcast. This is a special episode with yours truly. No guest today. It's just me, and I really wanted to take this opportunity to kind of backtrack and go over, again, why I do this show, what it's all about, what the purpose is, but also to let you get to know a little bit about me. Because I think, I spend a lot of time with my guests, and I like to really know what their journey was to get to where they are, the story that they're sharing, or the expertise that they're sharing, or the modalities of health that they got into, why they became the practitioners they became, their ideologies, all this stuff. I really think that it's important to understand how a person got there. So I thought that I would share my story a little bit to help you understand why I do this show, why I have the guests that I do, why I share the stories that I do, because I think that's really, really important to kind of understand. So this show is called Life on Purpose, and really it's about empowering people to take their life and take their health into their own hands. And it's a giant reminder that we have so much at our disposal. So much of our health and our well-being is our responsibility. We just need to be reminded sometimes that there are tools available to help us that aren't necessarily mainstream tools. And I think that's been really kind of upsetting to me, especially this year, that, we've had an opportunity this past year to really be able to bring true health into the mainstream, what true health is into the mainstream. And it hasn't happened. And it's been really, really, really disheartening, because what I've been seeing is the fact that, 60% of this country lives with at least one chronic disease. 40% lives with at least two or more. And that's staggering, especially during a pandemic where underlying chronic conditions can be life or death situation. And the fact that we're not bringing lifestyle and diet and vitamin D and zinc into the conversation is actually quite infuriating. But I won't get off on a tangent on that. I try not to be controversial on this show as much as, I would like to sometimes. But again, the reasons that I feel the way I do, stem from my ideologies and where I came from. So to kind of start with, I guess, the very beginning, I came from a family of complicated relationships, which I think is why relationships, interpersonal relationships, romantic relationships fascinate me so much. But my mom was a teenage mother. My dad was a 20-year-old runaway. He had run away when he was 15 years old, had issues with drugs and alcohol. Their relationship was complicated. And each of their relationships with their individual families were complicated. So kind of what I was born into was not so much chaos, but not so stable, I guess, is the word. And I don't say that to disparage anyone in my family. They know how I feel about them. They know that I love them, and this is not something that we don't talk about amongst each other. We've all kind of done the work in that regard, but my dad ended up taking his own life when I was 11 years old. It was on Father's Day, actually. And so that kind of changed the trajectory of my life. There's kind of a before, when my dad was still on this planet, and then there was me, my life, my feelings, my emotions, my growth after he was on this planet. And, I have gone through the process of mourning his death and processing his death and processing his life even at different stages of my own life. And that's kind of been a part of who I am, how I form my opinions about the world around me. It's actually been a huge part of how I process things. So, skipping ahead, there was a marriage, a stepfather that I grew up with, trying to have that relationship when I was still processing, the loss of my father was very complicated. But I would say probably one of the more pivotal moments for me, and I know this sounds really kind of odd, was my health struggles, because I had created this world around me where I had to control everything around me. I became a perfectionist. There was never a time in my life that I don't remember needing things to be neat and tidy and perfect. And so that kind of formed this pressure and this stress that I put on myself from, as far back as I can remember, honestly. I never realized I was doing it until, just a handful of years ago, when I got sick, and I realized that I needed to change some things to get better. But yeah, that was probably one of the more pivotal moments in my life, was when I got sick during my third pregnancy. I lost that baby in the second trimester. It was extremely traumatic. And things kind of spiraled out of control at that point. I no longer had this grip on my perfect little bubble that I created for myself. And I had to not only figure out what was happening to me, mourn this loss, but then overhaul everything to try to get better. Because again, I have this personality, this tendency of needing to figure things out, needing to fix them, needing to make them better. And I did. I pushed and I pushed and I pushed, and I ended up in the integrative functional medicine, functional nutrition realm. That ultimately was what provided my answers, but also what pushed me to make the changes that I couldn't find or wouldn't have been recommended in traditional medicine, which again, and I've said this repeatedly on this show, this is never a knock against traditional medicine. I think that there's just a better way for some of these more chronic, confusing matrix diseases, whole person diseases that can be treated more wholly, more root cause, more, deeply than what Western medicine can do. Because I think there is this whole piece that we're missing sometimes. We're not really looking at where a person came from. We're not looking at lifestyle. We're not looking at emotional stressors, because we all know that emotional stress, physical stress, it changes you. It changes the very fibers of your body. So we're missing these kind of bigger pieces that traditional medicine really isn't trained to look at. So again, this is never a knock against that. It is this call for the absolute imperative need for integrative approaches for a very large problem that has obviously gotten out of control, when more than half of us are struggling with it, and more than half of us are at risk during a pandemic. Again, like it blows my mind that this is not something that is more emergent than anything at this point, and that it's not being utilized. But so discovering integrative medicine was kind of this big change for me, because not only was I being treated physically, so I was, doing all of these physical things with diet and with supplements and vitamins and minerals and all these things that I was being depleted. But I was also forced to have to face the emotional things, the things that weren't tangible, that can't be measured, that were affecting me as well. And it was in those that I really started to see some change. And it was in those that, it clicked for me that there's this bigger picture. And I've always been kind of a bigger picture person. I really, I need to understand things. I need things to fit together. And finally, for the first time in my life, things were fitting together. Things were making sense. I was finally seeing this bigger picture of my life and how I got to where I was. So it was this need for me to be able to share these messages. It was not something like one day I was like, oh, it'd be fun to start a podcast. It was an absolute need for me. But for anybody that knows me personally, on a personal level, I hate being the center of attention. Doing this one-on-one podcast right now is probably one of the more uncomfortable things I've ever done. And it's why I do guests most of the time, because, I can kind of share my ideologies as I'm interviewing them as well. So, it makes it a little easier. But yeah, I wanted to find some really beautiful, interesting people with amazing stories, but also practitioners that had practical advice to let people know that you have choices. You have choices. When you feel like your health is completely, or your body is defying you, your health is completely down the toilet, you have to know that there are ways to get better. And it's going to be hard work. It's not going to be as easy as popping a pill. We've been so conditioned to think that just popping a pill, okay, I'm better, that's just masking your issues. Getting to the root of your problem is what is going to be the most imperative, most important thing. And that is the message that I wanted to share. And that is the message that I want for all of you. And that is why I do what I do and share what I share. And I guess I should probably admit this, but it's also an opportunity for me to learn from other people. I'm inviting these people into my world and into my life, and I'm asking them to share some, sometimes uncomfortable parts of themselves. I mean, some people on this show have shared some of the bravest stories I've probably ever heard, and they do it with such grace, and it's great for me, and I'm humbled by the fact that they are willing to open up and to share and to be on this show and to share with you, and it's all I've ever wanted. And I never want anybody to think that I'm doing this for any other reason but to give back. That's all it's ever been. That's all it is for me. And if anything controversial comes up on this show, it's not meant to be. I'm probably more interested in the things that other people question than accepting the mainstream. That's just how I've always been. But it's nothing always against the mainstream. It's just that sometimes it doesn't work for everybody. And I feel like we're living in this world where there's always these one-size-fits-all answers. And that's never been something I've ever been able to accept. Questioning the status quo has always been kind of something that I do. I just have never done it publicly before. So that's super uncomfortable. But again, the more I've been able to talk to people, the more brave, I guess, I have felt in wanting to share my own story and my own journey. And obviously, it goes much deeper than what I've just shared with you today, but it kind of gives you just a little bit of a glimpse into me and why this is such a passion of mine and why this is so important to me to be a messenger of health and a messenger of wellness and a messenger of living a life that is on purpose and that is filled with purpose, and helping to empower people to know that it's limitless. I mean, your abilities are limitless. Your abilities to live a happy life, a fulfilled life, are limitless if you know how to get there, if you're brave enough to get there, if you choose to get there. Because sometimes it takes leaving the old you behind and recognizing that, it's uncomfortable doing things differently. It's uncomfortable being different. It's uncomfortable stepping out of your comfort zone, but coming out on the other side, a happier, healthier, more fulfilled you, only makes room in your life to give back. And again, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing with this podcast. That's why I became a certified health coach and try to help people do the same. It was never my intention to, kind of go down this path. It found me, and it's been one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done. So if there is anything else that you guys want to know about me, or you have any other questions, or you want me to elaborate on anything, again, I'm an open book. Just, DM me, send me a message, send me an email, find me on Facebook, Instagram, website. I'm pretty easy to find. And I will cover it in the next podcast. I have a lot of really great guests lined up for you guys, and I hope that you're just as excited to hear from them as I am. People who dive into some of these more chronic issues that people deal with on a daily basis, and ways to deal with them naturally, holistically, and integratively. So I appreciate you listening to my rambling, and just know that this was not easy for me, but I'm hoping to do a few more solo podcasts here and there so you guys can get to know me a little bit better. And I look forward to seeing you or hearing from you very soon, and you'll be hearing from me in just a couple weeks. All right. Thanks, guys.